Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Truth and Reconciliation Week session, Inuit Stories, Art, and Life. My name is Jeff Junk, and I'll be helping facilitate our session today. I'm a volunteer from RBC, and I get to work on the bank's community marketing and citizenship team. I'm joining from Toronto today, and for that reason, I want to acknowledge that the land on which I live, work, and gather with others is the traditional territory of the Wendat Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Anishinaabe, including the Chippewas and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, Toronto is host to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people, and it's also within the Dish with One Spoon Wampum. And because we're gathering virtually today, I also want to acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all Inuit, Métis, and First Nations peoples across the country. As I mentioned, this session is Inuit Stories, Art, and Life. And if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the Q&A, and we'll definitely try to get to them at the end of the presentation. But I really want to give a warm welcome to our speaker today, Sally Webster. Sally is an Inuit from Baker Lake, Nunavut, and she has worked for Arctic College at the Baker Lake campus and at Paktuit Inuit Women of Canada in Ottawa. Sally operates the Baker Lake Fine Arts and Crafts and promotes Inuit fine arts. And without further ado, Sally, I will turn things over to you and give you a chance to kick things off and start your presentation.
Thank you. My name is Sally Webster. I'm from Baker Lake. When we were living in Akfed, Eskimo Point at that time, my husband bought this wall hanging, and I use it for teaching material now. The first one, if you can see, I'm going to talk about the dog team, how they used to travel from way back until maybe 60s. And that was the only transportation they had when they go hunting, and they needed the kamutik to pull the caribou or their supplies. They use the kamutik. And the kamutik, it's done by rope inside and outside. So it's flexible because if you use nails, when you're traveling on the tundra, they come out. So that's the way they make the kamutik. And also in the winter time, they put muddy to put it on top of it, and makes it more smooth. And when you're traveling on the snow, you can hear that it's traveling by dog team on the snow. I just want to show you this. This is that's it, how it looked like, made out of wood. When they had no wood in those times, they used frozen fish and put the skin inside. And that old Angahadlok was telling us they can use fish, put it inside the skin, and use to pull the supplies they have. But now they can use the wood. And this is similar. When they're traveling, they use tarp and cover it up so they don't get snow on top of the things they have inside. And if you can see the whip that they use to crack noise, to make the noise. And I used to think they're hitting the head of the dog, but it's not. It's just so they can go faster. Do I carry on to the next one? Oh, this is the igloo building. A man building the igloo. It's not straight up, it's slanted. So it makes it nice and like a dome. And they use panak, a snow knife made out of. It has a blade and the wood for the handle. If you can see the little face carved by antler, It's inside clothing. And nowadays they use it for overnight. They don't use it every day. Most people nowadays we have houses, even electricity and furnace, everything. In those days, when they lived in the igloo, they don't have to pay rent. But today, most people in the north, they had to pay rent and the power, everything. That was the way of life when they traveled to other communities for overnight. Caribou. I'm from inland, so we moved. Baker Lake is the inland community. All the rest are in the coastal area. We survive on caribou, fish, and Arctic hare. And when you see the antlers on the tuk-tuk caribou, it's just the antler. When you take it out, it has usage for everything. You can carve on them. You can use the head part of it for anchor when you're traveling by tarp team. Maybe you have seen the pictures. The lady did the sewing on it, but the husband made a little antler faces so you can see. I don't know if you can see them. Carved by antler. Like I said, antler is used for everything, tools, anything that they can use. Caribou hair is hollow. That's why when I talk about caribou skin clothing for traveling in the north or down the tundra when they go hunting, caribou hair is hollow, it traps air. And I said, even better than Betty Power parkas. So I'm just explaining about it. And those are the things I used when I was growing up, but you can explain about coastal seals and walrus, what you use, what you eat.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Knuckle meat, Sally. For Inuit across Nunavut, the coast was very important. That's where a lot of our harvesting practices took place for marine life, such as idip, polar bears, and of course seal. The coast is so important that when Nunavut was created, it included a water boundary for the first time. A water boundary was recognized, and that was thanks to Inuit who wanted to make sure that our waters were also protected under the land claims. So to this day, it continues to be very important. All the coastal line up north for Inuit.
Oh, I have the miniature kayak. My husband came up to Baker Lake, Nunavut in 1965. An old man came to my mother and said, this was just the frame. He made the frame. He had the caribou skin with him. He asked my mother, can you put the skin on top of this? He wanted to sell it. And I didn't know David, my husband, bought this over the years when it was on sale. My kids use it. We have 5 children. They use it in the bathtub, and it's still good. I just wanted to show you that's the way they used to travel before they had canoes. And my mother was telling me that my grandfather was paddling to the where the caribou herd was crossing the river. And my mother would be inside. I said, weren't you scared to be inside? She said, it's lots of room inside. And my grandfather would put thing on here or use the kayak paddling along. Sometime when they have lots of caribou, they hit the tupek tent behind the hill. So the caribou crossing, when they cross the river, and the hunters, once they come, they started chasing the caribou. This is the probe to test the snow when they're going to build the igloo. And I heard the man kept saying, no, meaning not good enough to build an igloo. This is made out of wood, and it have a little handle out of caribou bone. And that's a tester for caribou, the snow before they start building the igloo. Just to show you. And now look here. What's next on your slide? When they kill the caribou, and a lot of people share the caribou meat of the family, and they didn't have to sell it to them, just provide it to other people who might be hungry. And that's caribou he's carrying. And caribou legs, when it's on the caribou, when you skin the caribou, back legs are used for mitts, front legs used for women's mitts. It has use of everything, the caribou we use up north. First time I saw a polar bear was in 1962. It came up to Baker Lake because the polar bear was hungry. And then in 1980s, killer whale came up all the way to Baker Lake. That was the first time too. I was telling you about traveling by dog team. Now today, people can use skidoo to pull the kamuti to go out hunting or fishing. The lady even have the Honda, ATV Honda to go out hunting. Instead of walking, they have skidoos, Hondas, even cars and trucks. Now a lot of people been traveling. They have brought cars and trucks instead of going by dog team, or they use skidoo for hunting or fishing. You want to talk about the whale that you've been hunting? No? Okay.
Yes. Do you want to show some of your tools, fishing tools?
Okay. Before they had fishing hooks, they have to catch the fish somehow, and they had a little made out of antler. Those little things looks like little wings. When you put it in the water, they float. And once the char or lake trout come along, they use the kayak, not kayak, kakipa. This is how they would catch the fish from when it's shallow. You can see the fish going around, and when it comes, you use the little fishing. It's not no hook on it. Just the way it moves, the fish would come. They have to think of way how to get the fish, catch it. And this is made out of antler when you go ice fishing. And this is even made out of antler too, and ice fishing. And this is antler as well. And now I make this made out of wood instead of antler. And when I go ice fishing, when I go up north, this is what I use now. And I made the pattern for it. When I was talking about the pana, the guy is making blocks to build the igloo. This would have been made by steel, and this one just a wooden handle. I have seen two-bladed pana. We call it panolia. When women are traveling, they never leave the needle behind because they had to mend. If there's a rip on the kamik or polo, they put the needle inside. And this is made out of antler. And women, when they're traveling, this is what they use. Never leave the needles behind because they have to, when they're out on the land, they might have to fix their kamiks or boil mitts. During the winter time, anytime when they use ayakak to play, and what you do is, I can't do that. When it's up in the air, this goes in, and it has a long way of traveling, and they tell you, I get up, I put my clothing on, I put my porluk on, my mitts or kamik, to see how far you can go without missing putting it in here. That's a little game a lot of people use nowadays, especially Christmas time or holidays when they have birthday parties to see who can finish. Timer, that's it.
All right, thank you. Could we move on to questions, please? Thank you.
Hey, yeah, so, thanks. Sorry, my video took a minute to get on there. Sally, thank you so much for sharing all those things. One of the questions I had, because you talked a lot about using caribou for a lot of those tools. Do people still use caribou to create those, or have people moved on to different materials?
Yeah, they do, and they do the carvings too. They carve out of caribou antler. They go look in the. I can't reach there. This is Inuit using antler too. And what Guy did is there's a metal inside. He just put them on and made Inuit out of it. Caribou used for everything, tools or before the Hudson Bay Company came up north, that's what they use a lot of caribou antler, make tools and for fishing seeker and stuff like that. Women use ulu, but I don't know if she showed it. It's called ulu woman's knife.
And how long would it take to make some of those things?
Wonderful.
How long would it take to make some of the tools?
Depends on the carver who, I guess, some. Now, in those days, when they used the soapstone carving, they used to use axe and the file and sanding, but now they have electric tools that take them, I don't know, not as long. When 1960s craft officer came up to Baker, and that's what they used, just an axe, file and sanding it. But now when I see the carving, I see more abstract carvings done by machine. And in 60s, when the hunters were doing the carvings, they more detail, like anything like women or men or polar bear. They would have used axe and file and sanding it. But now with the new tools, they do it a lot faster.
Right. We have lots of questions coming in from people who are joining us virtually. There's a grade 7 class in Fort Francis, Ontario that wants to know what other kinds of tools for hunting are made with antlers. Is there anything you haven't shown us yet, maybe?
You can explain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of the tools that are still made, dog team, people that have a dog team have what's called a oksip, and it's similar size to the blade of this knife, and it helps keeps the lines together, sorted, so that the dogs don't get tangled. And it's a very small piece of bone, not too much bigger, about this size. And that's something that's continued to be used regularly. And kakibak, people we still make kakibak. That's the fishing. That's for fishing. So the fish would get caught in here. So this would be a tool still used.
And just pulled it out of the water.
The skins, caribou skin is still used a lot for extreme winter clothing. So anyone going out on, for example, a polar bear hunting trip in February, especially if it's for multiple days, that's their coldest month. So
yeah.
Caribou skin is what would be the best tool.
Coastal people
so
would use seal skin, Would they use sealskin skin?
Yeah, sealskin too, mostly summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, I think, to know that, you know, the whole caribou is used by the community.
Yeah.
It's important for people to know that.
Yeah, they share it, and sometimes when they're traveling, they don't have seen caribou for a long time. When they come to the community, they'll welcome them and they let them feed the dog, share their food. But nowadays, it's changing. I have heard now people who don't have caribou meat, they would like to buy some for their meal. It's changing. In those days, they would share everything instead of, they didn't expecting anything in return.
Sally, people would like to know, have you ever gone hunting?
I have. I even cached my caribou. I forgot where I didn't mark it, and I know the hill, but I went back to get it. I was using the shovel looking for it. Where it is, I never found it. That was my first cached caribou. It was under the snow. Actually, I forgot where was it. You have to know the area where you catch the caribou. Sometimes they put antler up, so.
I'm just looking at some more. There's lots of questions here. I'm just looking to see what the next one should be. One question, Megan Drew is asking if you can describe what those sleds are made out of. Again, I think you showed one of the sleds at the beginning. What are those made out? What are those made out of usually?
The old man came to the school in 60s, and he was telling us before they had the kamutik made out of wood. He said what they put frozen caribou and wrap it around the skin, and that way he can carry the load of meat. But nowadays, you can explain that instead of mud.
Okay. So Sally was explaining the material before that was used was mud, frozen mud for the runners. Today, depending on which part of Nunavut you go to.
I think every community now.
Yeah. A lot of communities use like it's like a really hard plastic, and it slides really well on ice and snow and rocks. But there are some communities further in the high Arctic where they travel on a lot of gravel, and they actually use steel. Yeah, just it lasts longer.
Yeah, because the mud they use it melted in the springtime. Steel and other thing that he's talking about can stay on. Yeah.
And where would those sleds get made? Would they be made in the community, or would they be made elsewhere and then brought in?
We're Namisanayosu in the community, or
in the community, they built it outside.
Outside?
Because they have no work room. They take it outside and put it together. Like down south, you can have in the basement workroom, but up north they don't.
One of the questions we have also is, I think people are wondering, I think at the beginning you talked about, you know, people making igloos. If you made an igloo, you didn't have to pay rent, but now people are living in homes. One of the questions we have is what kind of materials are used to build homes, or were there any materials that were used maybe before igloos or during igloos that were made or used?
Overnighting igloo, now they have made out like a cottage building made out of plywood, wood. When they go hunting, they just go inside. They don't have to build an igloo anymore. Or in the summertime, they just go in instead of putting their tent out. It's like a little shack, cottage type of housing. You can explain.
Yeah, especially the hunting camps, and often the housing was built with whatever materials were available. So you can, if you go to before when it was mostly snow and mud and antlers, bones and antlers were used to create a structure, and then earth, sod, a mix of different.
Hammock, they call it hammock.
Yeah. So the hammock would have like earth materials, rocks, skins for winter insulation. And then if you go into the 1950s, when we started getting more activity up north, that was from different parts of the world. They brought new materials.
Yeah. Nowadays, they don't have to build an igloo if they have a little cabin out somewhere, and they just go in and just go inside and start cooking or making tea or bannock.
Right, but so it's interesting though. It was a lot of like natural materials they were using in terms of, you know, the caribou skins and some of the earth, and yeah. One of the other questions we had from Adogoyak High School in Nunavut is they're wondering if you know anything about whaling. I guess, you know, that was probably a big activity on the coast. And they wonder specifically, how would they pull whales from, you know, out of the water onto land?
You can explain. They pull it by canoe or how?
Look good at the it depends on the season. If it was in the ice, often there's more than one group of hunters, so people work together to land it onto the ice, or onto rocks that are not too dangerous for boaters. The more people, the easier, and more cooperation required.
Baker Lake is the only inland up the north. So this summer, Baker Lake people went to other community, Repos Bay. They were hunting for Honekwa, boathead. Yeah, whale. Yeah.
So Sally, when you saw that killer whale,
boat went down.
I was going to, Sally, when you saw that killer whale, you said there's a killer whale that came all the way into Baker Lake.
Yeah.
At one point. What did you think?
I was here in Ottawa, so somebody sent me a picture, and people were excited. They were after it and killed it. And the man who killed the killer whale, she said, I wish I hadn't. It would have gone back to the ocean, and couldn't get back in. So he was in fresh water. Couldn't go back out. If they have changed him, he would have. Yeah.
But I guess that would be something that's pretty rare.
We don't see that often. Yeah. Only in movies or pictures.
Yeah. One of the other questions we have is about seal skin, and there's a grade 7 student wants to know what's seal skin used for.
What do the seal skin get used for?
Make clothing, and they use the meat for, they eat the meat, and the skin of it, they make clothing out of it, like parka or wind pants, whatever. And mitts, a lot of people make mitts out of them. You can explain more what they use it for. Use of everything too, like caribou, use the skin for clothing, the meat for the family to use, and give the rest to the dogs or something. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even for tupas?
Even tent, like a tent or teepee, they make tent out of it. So was Inuit with the tent. Where I come from, they just sew the skin together and make like a teepee. And I asked my uncle, aren't they really dark? Because it has a fur on it and skin on it. He said, no, it's okay. They're really, really warm, he said. I never slept in it.
I actually have I have a friend who spent some time in Inuit, and she has a sealskin wallet, and it was the softest thing I've ever touched in my life. It was so beautiful. Speaking of keeping warm, someone in Saskatoon is wondering, how do you build a fire in an igloo, and how warm would it get? You know, how do you build a fire in an igloo without it melting?
Like a hodlik over there. My grandmother and her grandparents, grandmother, they would use hodlik, and my grandmother would have used caribou fat to melt it and put the Arctic cotton for a week, and oil here, and then if they have igloo, it's made out of they put the wood inside in the igloo, and caribou sinew, it's like dream catcher type of thing, and anything that wet they would put there, or even build a boil tea or caribou or whatever they need make for dinner. And also in the igloos, I heard they had like a kitchen. They would use it in the summer. They would use moss and twigs, whatever they find out on the tundra. That made out of soapstone.
And would that give enough warmth in an igloo for people? I guess an igloo is pretty warm already since it's well insulated.
I've never seen my grandmother or my mother using it. I was born too late. So a lot of people use them over the years. That's a main, even when they're traveling, they would bring with them. Before the common stove came along at the Hudson Bay Company, that's what they would have used. Now people use electric stoves instead of this. Everything changing, yeah, but you have to pay for it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that everything changes for sure.
No more modern stuff here.
Yeah. I actually have a question about
what they used. They didn't have to pay for fuel or igloo, or didn't have to pay for the igloo. They just built it and tent, canvas tent. But now when they're traveling, they have a little shack, like a built more like a house. They just can go inside instead of putting the tent up or build an igloo, but they just go inside. It's a lot easier. Yeah. But you still have to buy the material and stuff, pay for it. Yeah. Is there any other question in the wall hanging?
Well, I had a question about that because there's so many different scenes depicted in what you were showing. Do they tell a story, or are they just to show kind of what life was like?
Yeah, when I went back to Baker Lake, I was looking after Baker Lake Fine Arts. I have 34 women making those wall hanging, and every time they come, I would ask her, what's this? I can see what's there, but I would ask them, what's the story behind it? And they would tell me, and I would have to explain where I'm going to send the wall hanging to, like Vancouver, Toronto, or Montreal, and say the title of the wall hanging, it's this. But when you start asking the artist, there's more story to it. That's what I did. That's the way of like they see out on the tundra, that put it on the onto the material. This is made out of duffel, felt, and embroidery thread. That's what they use. Put it on felt and do the embroidery thread on top so it would last longer. See the dogs, it's covered. Little stitching. It's a lot of work, but once it's finished, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. How long would that take someone to make?
Sometimes they take, what lady told me was that one of the artists, they have to think for a couple of days to see what they're going to put on the material. And they finally starting the artwork. And it can take about a month if it's large, or less than a month, depend how small the wall hanging is, the artwork they did.
Yeah, it's quite amazing how much detail are in those figures with all the stitching.
Yeah, most of them are gone now, the artists I work with, so younger generations are doing it now.
And so have you participated in creating the wall hangings, or do you just
I just look after order the material, how much they need, give it to them. When they finish, they would bring back to me, and I would pay them and ship them out wherever that I can sell it to.
And where have you sold wall hangings to? All over Canada?
I was there only from 97 to 2000. So when I left, it wasn't, nobody took over. There's a Jesse Onak Center, they sell stuff like that in Baker Lake. And in the other communities too, like Inuit and other places.
And for this blue one, what is it? What kind of story is it telling?
Oh, about hunting trips. The way when they go hunting, what they caught, and like seal, walrus, caribou, and polar bear. I never tasted polar bear. Some people like it. Yeah, we have lots of muskox now too in Nunavut, everywhere. They used to be more like in the Western Arctic area or Eastern Arctic, whatever. They had it. But now it came to all Nunavut pretty well, eh? Nunavut?
Lots, yeah.
Yeah, lots of it.
And where do you, well, one of the questions we just had come in is asking, where do you get all the supplies to make the wall hangings?
What I did, I had, when I took the lady went down south to move to Winnipeg, when I took over, she showed me where to order from, like Montreal or Winnipeg, anywhere. And then when I'm finished, then I would try to sell it. That's a duffel.
So you get all the, yeah.
Yeah.
So you get all the materials sent to you and then given to the artists.
Then I would pay them, and when it's finished. But it's hard for me because you have to have enough money to pay the rent, enough money to pay people. You have to know budgeting everything. I find it hard, but I enjoy working with the Inuit women who does the wall hanging.
And is it usually only women who work making the wall hangings?
Now anybody can do it. Even the man came over, had a little wall hanging that he made, and I paid him, little one. Of course, he made a man standing up for.
Of course. And how many people would work on one wall hanging? Is it just one person, or is it a team
one
of
person
people?
who's an artist?
One person.
Yeah. When I found out when working with the women is they would come in and they would wait till somebody leave because they didn't want to show it right away to other people so they don't copy it. And one day I found out, somebody told me that a lady named Nancy won't show her artwork until she's alone with me. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've addressed a lot of the questions.
Yeah. A lot of women are carvers, soapstone carvers, and they're an artist too, because they see things on the land every day. So really nice wall hanging they make, or soapstone carvings, or antler carvings, whatever they can use. How about ivory, little ivory carvings too, from the coastal area.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, I guess everyone can take part in making those materials, whether it's tools out of antlers or the wall hangings. You know, it's not divided between people.
Mm-hmm. It helped them to have income coming so they can buy groceries or what they need. Artists work hard too. Yeah.
Oh, very hard, yes.
You want to show some of your code? You want to show some of your?
Yeah. He pointed out that's a little seal carving. I don't know if you can see it properly. Maybe the kamutik. Bring me the kamutik. Can't make the kamutik. That's a seal carving.
And is that made
out of soapstone? The one seal you see is dead, but this one, life living, look like a carving made out of soapstone. Seal.
Beautiful.
The way they see it when they go hunting, that's how they carve. Yeah.
Really cool. I think we're pretty close to wrapping up, unless there's a couple of last things you'd like to show, Sally.
That made out of, looks like apple, right?
Mhm.
A little kayak, a man paddling kayak.
I
But
love
it's hard to
that.
see with the background there. That's how they sell their stuff to the craft officer or anywhere. Oh, there. And this way. See the details they do? That's the way the artists see things when they carve.
Do you have any last message you'd like to share?
No. Thank you for asking us to talk about the art.
Well, thank you for sharing, Sally. That was really, really interesting. And I learned a lot today. And I learned a lot about, all the different materials that are used to create and the work that goes in to create everything.
What I would like to see is the school children, if they have seen that, they should draw it and try to make artwork, and maybe eventually they'll be an artist after when they grow up. I'd like to
Yeah, I
ask
think
the
that's a great
children
idea.
to do a drawing whenever I'm finished talking about art.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. They should go back, try their own drawing and make it look like their own wall hanging.
Yeah. Or they can do it themselves. Now you can buy material and felt and embroidery cloth. They can do it.
I think so too, yeah. Everyone likes a challenge.
All right.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Sally. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day and talk to you soon.
Thank you. I hope I make sense when I'm talking about them, explaining. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bonjour, good afternoon. I would like to acknowledge that since I am in Winnipeg today, I am Treaty 1 territory on the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Dakota, Dene, Métis, and Ojibwe peoples. I recognize we all work in different places and we live and gather and organize on various traditional territories. As this is the first Truth and Reconciliation Week, and it comes to an end, there are a few people that we'd like to give our sincerest gratitude for and their involvement in ensuring this week was supported and funded. Truth and Reconciliation Week is a national initiative made possible with support of staff at the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, the NCTR Governing Circle, the NCTR Survivors Circle, NCTR Steering Committee, and all staff have been integral to building this week. Thank you to our friends at AMP for their producing talents and media styles for communication support. Truth and Reconciliation Week was made possible with the generous support of funders, sponsors, and partners from across the country. We give a big thank you to the Government of Canada for their support and thank our presenting sponsor, RBC. This program became a reality with their contributions and those made by the NIB Trust Fund, Hubalo, the Winnipeg Foundation, Canadian Commission for UNESCO, and to the provinces and territories that contributed in a meaningful way, and particularly to the many provincial ministries of education and organizations for their collaboration, understanding, and support. Thank you to our media supporters from APTN, CBC, Facebook, NFB, CBC Manitoba, Télé-Québec en Place, Wapakoni, No Indigenous History, CBC Kids News. Thank you to our elders, knowledge keepers, speakers, and the survivors who participated in this week's program, as well as the Assembly of First Nations. I give special thank you to Elder Bone and to our drummer, Ray Stevenson, for the opening us in a good way, the Sacred Fire Keepers, and to the Honorable Murray Sinclair, thank you for your presentation as a knowledge keeper and for always sharing your wisdom with us. Lastly, I want to thank Hubalo, the platform on which we were able to share this wonderful week of sessions. Truth and Reconciliation Week content will be available on the Hubalo platform for weeks to come. And we encourage teachers to log in to access content and educational materials as the conversations in your classrooms continue. With this, we come to an end of Truth and Reconciliation Week. Thank you for all being present this week and for joining us as such an attentive audience. To the teachers, students, those committed to lifelong learning, and everyone who participated in this week, miigwech for your commitment and learning and growing as part of your journey of reconciliation. I hope you have all had a great day and will continue to do so the rest of the week. Thank you. Miigwech.